me get my PowerPoint up. So first thing I want to do is, good morning, Chris, is I want to recap from the last class, just making sure, because I know some of you were not on the last class. So this class kind of ties into what we call the 8 and 8. And so the 8 and 8 postcard campaign was designed by a company called Hobbs and Herder, and they're based out of California. And Hobbs and Herder did let me move this here, did an 8-week campaign into a neighborhood. They used a fictitious realtor. Chris, I'm going to mute you. They used a fictitious realtor, and they sent out this 8-week series of postcards with very specific language. And so you can see on the screen the language there. And at the end of the 8 weeks, they surveyed the group of people who had been receiving these postcards. And the majority of the people said that they would hire this realtor to sell their home. And again, not a real person, right? So they didn't know this person. So these postcards are extremely effective in the sense of the messaging that they send. So I wanted to just remind you guys that that's part of this class is the postcard campaign. So Orlando has it laid out a little bit more customized. The ones that you can get out of Design Center are pretty generic, I think, on the front side of it. But Orlando can work with you to customize it, kind of if you want to brand it around yourself, or you want just the branding around each postcard and the messaging of the postcard. The thing is, you don't change the verbiage. All right, I had an agent take this to a title company, and the guy said, well, this seems really very, very strong languaging. And so he wanted to start manipulating it and changing it. That's not the point of this. Hobbs Herder is a national marketing company. They know what they're doing. They're far smarter than we are. So don't change the languaging, just leave it as it is, and let the marketing work for itself. The other thing I want to tell you is, if you're going to do this, make sure you have the money and you can budget for 8 weeks, because it's not going to make any sense and it's not going to do you any good to send out 4 and then say, oh shoot, there's no more room on my credit card. So make sure you're budgeting it and you're aware of how much it's going to cost you to send out all 8 of them. Okay. And the idea with these postcards is that it's going to jumpstart. So usually we say when you start a new farm that it's going to take you, 6 months to a year to get leads and start the funnel of it. When you do this type of marketing, the idea is it's going to pull vault that, right, and make it a lot faster. So you can see this is the front of one of the postcards. This is the second postcard. So it's very specific languaging. So again, those are in Design Center, Max Center in the marketing portal, or you can talk to Orlando about it. So just wanted to remind you guys of that. All right, let me open up my other PowerPoint. All right, share screen. Good morning, Lisa. Okay, so here we go. Let's jump into what we're going to talk about today is how to set up a farm and what does a farm look like. I don't know what is happening with my PowerPoint today, sorry. What does a farm look like? What are the basics that you guys need to be looking for in a farm and how to be effective in that? Nate's been farming since the dawn of time, and it was interesting. On Sunday, we spoke at CRS together, which was so much fun. And we ran into a guy that he actually had mimicked some of his postcards way back in the day. Nate was doing these really, very basic, ugly postcards, right? But they worked and they generated business. And so direct mail does work for, generating business. It's a long game, you guys. It's not something that, you have to plan for it, right? And it's not something that's necessarily going to generate business right away. Because if you think about, you're only looking for those people, you're targeting the people who are in that moment receiving your marketing piece, who are thinking about moving. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about four intentional and proven approaches for creating additional relationships through a farm. So the plan is, obviously we got to have a plan, right? So we're going to have a farm, and we're going to break down exactly what is a farm and what you should be doing with that. Obviously, these are going to be new relationships, and we're targeting buyers and sellers, mostly sellers. And what's interesting is I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately and webinars. And as much as all of us don't want to work with buyers right now, love you buyers, but the market's really challenging. A lot of listing leads are coming from buyers. And so, because if you think about it, you're targeting a buyer that's a secondary buyer, right? Or an investor, they might have a product that they need to unload. And so, don't necessarily be afraid to market to buyers, because buyers sometimes have houses that they need to sell. And obviously having a good, strong CRM that you can store these relationships in. So having a yard sign, your advertising, using the internet and just sold postcards. This class is also full of a lot of scripts and dialogues that we're not necessarily going to role play on Zoom together, but I would highly encourage you to go back and read the scripts and dialogues so that you're aware of what that content is. We talked a lot about that recently on a workman call, was scripts and dialogues. There were 200 million leads that were bought and paid for last year. And so think about that, 200 million leads, but only 6 million homes were sold. So that's a whole lot of leads that are being generated, right, by us giving our credit cards, and only 49% of those leads receive a response. And so when you think about lead generation, right, it's so easy to put our credit card out to get leads, but no one's taking our credit card to teach us scripts and dialogues, right? And I think that's where we really struggle as an industry, is our messaging and what are we saying in order to convert people. Some of you, those of you who were at R4, and then those of you who saw our posts, prior to last year, the number one reason that consumers wanted to work with a realtor was access to properties. Not expertise, not representation. I need you, Debbie, to be able to get into the home. That has changed. And the number one reason now is trust. They need a trusted advisor, and good for us that RE/MAX was ready to be number one trusted brand in real estate. So win-win for us as RE/MAX agents. But think about that. So we want to be able to trust the person that we're working with, right? And so think about the messaging, right, and the scripts and dialogues. So please read through the scripts and dialogues and make sure you're comfortable with those, because it does make a big difference when you encounter someone that you don't know, right? What am I saying, to be able to immediately build that trust with them so that I'm saying the right thing so that they feel comfortable working with me, okay? All right. So the financial security of a prospector who's patient and systematic. And I think that's an important part there. Patient, right? You got to have the time, take the time to invest in the farm, right? Do the right things, and then being systematic, meaning that you're following a process that's proven. Okay. So we're just going to focus on the first column here, which is phase one. So prospects, meaning 250 doors. And so when you guys think about setting up a farm, you know, if Nate were teaching this class, he would say, go after 1,000 doors, right? But let's start small. Let's start realistic, that it's 250 doors. Okay. So we have 250 prospects. You would do 3,000 mailers throughout the year. And then this is saying a 50 cents for a cost. You probably could find that cheaper depending on who you're using. I highly recommend that all of you guys check out Barry Etter. He's our in-house print guy. Love him. He's a local guy, was a client, and he will beat any price that he possibly can. So I highly recommend him. He's a great guy. So your total investment, $1,500 for the year, and only a 1% conversion. And so that's a pretty low conversion, right? But again, we're only looking for those people that in that moment that they receive your marketing piece, you're thinking about selling. So that would give you 3 transactions. I laugh at this slide, right? $150,000 average sales price. I wish, because I would be buying them up. So let's just change that, right? What are we at about right now in Phoenix? About 400,000 is our average sales price. So if we do the math on 400,000, and our average commission here at RE/MAX Professionals is, let's just say 2.5, just to be on the safe side. So that's a $10,000 check, right? So 10,000 times 3 is $30,000. And when we look at our cost, $1,500 versus 30,000. Anytime you guys spend money, you want to see a return on investment of 3 to 4 times. And so $1,500, what is that? 1,500 times 3 is 4,500. So I think we're pretty good with 30,000, right? As far as our initial investment and what we could potentially get out of that. And then the idea here is that once you start generating revenue from your farm, you want to start reinvesting that in growing the farm. So then, you could see here 2, 3, 4, 5, we increase the number of doors that we're hitting, right? Because now we've got the revenue to do that, and we continue to grow. Now, what this slide doesn't show you guys is all of the other business that comes from this, right? So we get a sign call. We take that sign call. Statistically speaking, when a home goes on the market, in the next 30 days, another home will come on the market on the same street. Within 60 to 90 days, an additional 2 to 3 homes will be listed. So if you're doing the right things, we should hope, right, that you would get an opportunity to at least interview one of those additional people that are thinking about selling their home. And so this doesn't take into account all the other opportunities that come from having a sign in the yard, right? We used to say that you got a list to, what was it? List to survive, or I don't remember what the saying was. But we used to say that because it's true, right? He who has the listings dominates the market. All right, so the note you have of a farm plan, and for those of you who jumped in late, I will, or after we got the recording going, I will send you the class materials so that you have them. So the note you have of a smart farm, so we got to have a prospect, right? We got to have doors that we're knocking on, right? That's your farm area, so geographic area that we are targeting, and then your smart farm system. So the no, we got to know. Here's the critical things for your farm. Okay, you got to know the turnover rate. How many houses are selling in that 250 doors? How many houses are selling? The rule of thumb is 5 to 7%. Anything above 7 is awesome. Okay, so if you had 100 homes, right, we want to see what was the math on that. Somebody tell me the math. I'm terrible with math. 100 times 5 would be, right? Am I doing that right? It's not 50. That's too many. It would be, let me go 250 houses. Here we go. So you want to see out of 250 doors, you want to see about 12 to 13 houses selling would be on the low side. Okay. So it's not going to do you any good to go in and farm in a neighborhood that people move in and live there till they die. Right. Because you need to see that turnover. I personally think I want to see a farm that has not only a good turnover, but it's also in the sweet spot. Right, in the sweet spot for first-time home buyers, right? Because we have the move-up product, or in the sweet spot of the average sales price, okay? Because those are the properties that turn and burn. You need to have a dialogue, right, to solicit those people, and then you also need to make sure it's not being dominated by anybody else, right? We want to make sure that there isn't any agents in there that are already doing a lot of sales. And the way you do that is you go into MLS and you're going to pull 6 months and look in that neighborhood and say, okay, you see somebody's name, right? Look through the sales, and if you see somebody who's got, I would say 3 plus sales in there, they might be marketing depending on the turnover rate. Okay, so you want to look into that. If it's your own neighborhood, you know if there's somebody in there farming, right? Because you're getting their solicitations. Okay, we talked about the 8 and 8 postcards. Again, if you really want to step this up and really do it, invest in the 8 and 8 postcards. And then we're going to talk about neighborhood update cards, and then neighborhood website, and then tracking. Anything that we talk about in momentum is tracking, right? We want to track because we're not going to know what our ROI is unless we're tracking it, right? We don't know how many sign calls we're getting, how many leads are coming in, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to make sure we're tracking everything. All right, so here is one of the examples of the 8 and 8. And of course, I need to update my slides because this balloon is old. This was one that when they first came out with the 8 and 8, this is what it looked like on the front side. And then this is what it looked like on the front side. And so again, I don't personally love, because you don't get to change this on the design center stuff. This is the same, and it's probably going to be the new slogan that's in there, which is what is the new slogan? Who went to R4? The right agents leading the way. Is that what it is, Roberta? The new slogan for RE/MAX, that's this year's slogan. I think it's that, the right agents leading the way. But anyway, so I would guess it's probably gonna get updated to this. So that's one thing I don't love, is I feel like the messaging should be, the front of the postcard should match the messaging. That's why I say go to Orlando, because he's got that all dialed in. Okay, so for those of you following along with materials, page 6. So why mail? So because we need a lead generation system, right? We want to get in front of more people, and having the opportunity to do that. Okay, so what's a mail? So again, 8 and 8 postcards, and then once you do those, you're going to drop down and do a monthly postcard, right? A monthly mailer. If you get a listing, you're going to send out a just listed postcard, right? And I feel like when you have a listing, there's 4 opportunities to door knock, right? And some of us are not comfortable door knocking. I get that. So if you don't want to door knock, you can still do a mailer or drop something off, right? And we're talking about 10, 10, 20, right? So 10 people on either side of the house and 20 people across the street. If you're going to do a just listed postcard, you might want to send it to the whole farm. So if it's 250 doors, you're going to want to send a just listed postcard to the whole farm. Now, what I would do is I would do the whole farm, and then I would door knock, or at least drop something off specifically to 10, 10, 20, right? Why? Because one, I want to tell them about the listing, right? Coming soon, great time to pick your neighbor. I'm going to do an open house, which by the way, Nate shared at CRS on Sunday that his team's #1 lead gen right now, it's not their sphere of influence, not top 50, it's open houses. Which I was blown away by that, right? Because I'm thinking, gosh, top 50 is always what generates the most business. And his buyer's agents are fighting over who gets to do the open houses. So going back, so I'm going to, coming soon, I'm doing the open house, great time to come in. And, some people are doing 1 hour before to let the nosy neighbors come through, right? And then when it goes under contract, I want to tell a story. What did I do? How many offers? One agent went and apologized, right? Because they had like 50 showings. And so he went and knocked on the doors to apologize for the traffic on the street. And by the way, we got it under contract, right? So we have to do a good job. I loved Christy's post that she did yesterday. We have to do a good job, you guys, of telling people what we did in order to get that home sold. We are part of the challenge on the downward push on our commissions, because we see agents out there, this house sold in 5 hours with 15 offers. Why do I need you? Right? Why do I need you? And then also it's scaring the heck out of people. It's scaring the heck out of buyers. It's scaring the heck out of sellers. And so we're creating this challenge, right? So instead, you can still share that same story, but your messaging matters. How you say it matters. What did I do? And that's what I loved about Christie's, is she talked about having bomb ass marketing, how she worked her tail off, right? And got the deal done, right? And so we got to talk about that defends our commission, right? Some of you know I'm buying a house, and we're buying it for sale by owner. And we did the final walkthrough yesterday, and the 2 big repairs that we had negotiated were not done. And the seller, it wasn't because the seller wasn't going to do them. The seller said, well, I thought we could pay for it out of the proceeds of the escrow. Well, sure you can, but the work still needed to be done. And the vendor said he'd wait to get paid, right? So this is a classic example. And I said to my agent, I said, this is why they need a realtor, right? Because they don't know what they don't know, right? And so kind of a crazy story with that. So again, defending your commission with what you're doing. So what to mail, right? So go back, so storyboard on the pending, right? Storyboard. And then when it closes, we want to go back and again, let them know. Now I can tell them what it sold for, right? I can say, this is what we did to get this house sold. It's under contract. Now the 4th touch is that this is how I sold it. And oh, by the way, your new neighbors are, Jim and Sally, right? So what's mail? So then, so just listed, then you're going to do just listed postcard, and then a just sold postcard. And then what I just shared about the additional 4 touches is not in the material. Those are just additional things I think we could be doing to ensure that we're getting more leads out of our farm. Okay. So where to mail? So again, page 6, we want a 5 to 7% turnover rate. And the last, I would say 6 months, this material says 12, I would look at 6 months. It's conducive for the average sales price that you want. You want is your price, right? Some of you might be wanting to upgrade your price, and that's great, right? Go into those markets. The luxury market is still pretty hot too. And so, it's conducive to where you want to be. Now, if you're in an area specific, great, look at that area, right? You just want to make sure that you're going to get your 3 times your ROI. And then the third thing, again, it's not being dominated by another agent. Just check the numbers and see. It'll be pretty obvious when you're looking at MLS if there's an agent already farming in there. And then the next step is how to mail. So again, 8 and 8 postcards, then your neighborhood update. If you guys, there's a service through the post office called Every Door Direct. And so that's probably the cheapest way to do. Now, the only problem with Every Door Direct is you're not necessarily going to get to pick the specific area. It's based on mailing routes. And so you'll have to just work with that and figure out the mailing routes. Christine and Nate Jr. on Nate's team, they're kind of masters at Every Door Direct. So I would reach out to them if you guys have any questions, and they're happy to answer any of that. And then when to mail. So every 3 weeks, right? We want to be sending something out so that we're staying top of mind. And then again, once you get a new listing, then when it goes under contract. And I also think, again, this is not in the materials, but I also think, why not take a physical presence? Get involved in the community. Not every community allows people to do garage sales every weekend, but find out when the community yard sale is going to be, right? It's usually in the spring and in the fall. So find out when they are and go drive around, hand out donuts, hand out bottles of water, show up, right? Get involved in the schools. If there's a school, most neighborhoods have a school. Get involved in the schools. I love the idea of sponsoring having the cops come in and register children, right? You could do something like that. You could sponsor a team inside the school. There's a lot of ways you can get involved with the schools. If there's an HOA, right? Maybe try to get involved in the HOA. Find ways to inject yourself physically into the farm. If there's a coffee shop in the area where you're farming, go hang out there. Right? Go shop, go check in. Kyle told me that because he farms Moon Valley, and he told me he went to get his haircut and he was in a Moon Valley salon, and the lady recognized him from Facebook. And so that's beautiful, right? When people start recognizing you, and when you're shopping around in a store because of your Facebook stuff and your farming, your advertising, right? So inject yourself into those communities. It will help to increase your engagement. Okay, so less information on the card is better, right? So we don't want to overdo things. So when we do the postcard, this is a really simple, basic thing. So we have the subdivision name, the activity. Now, you guys are not allowed to advertise listings that are not yours. You can put 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet listed at, but you can't put the address unless you get permission from the listing agent on active and pendings. Sold or open game, right? That's public information, which is interesting, you guys, because not all states are like that. Our neighbors in Utah are a non-disclosure state. So you need a realtor to find out what your house is worth, because you're not getting it on Zillow because they're a non-disclosure state. So kind of interesting how Arizona, you find out everything, right? So it's public information, so you can disclose that. This one doesn't even have that, right? It doesn't even have the address. It just says there's 5 homes sold, 10 are available, which I wish. And then your average sales price and the average list price, right? And then call for more details. Pretty basic stuff, right? This could be generated really simply and sent out to the 250 doors, okay? And again, then once you have the 8 and 8, and then the monthly postcard, and again, the just listed, just sold stuff. And once you get traction and get going, okay? So that's a really basic, and that's on page 7 of your materials. So I love the quote at the top. Bottom line is that sellers want to work with agents who can get superior results. And so when I was at conference, I don't know if you guys know who Jared James is, but I love him, and he's just so well-spoken, and he's kind of a smart butt too, which makes me laugh. But anyway, he made the reference that 9s don't date 5s. 9s don't date 5s. They might date an 8. They're not, maybe a 7, but they're not dating a 5. And so how does that apply to real estate? Well, it's kind of the same thing. Seller's not going to hire a 5. Right? A seller wants to work with a 9 or a 10 or a plus, right? And so really challenging ourselves to say, are we a 9? Are we a 9 plus, right? What are we doing that is going to get those superior results, right? And are we talking about it? And that's the other thing too, is I don't think we're telling the consumer everything that we do. You take my situation with this for sale by owner. She didn't have a contract. She didn't have vendors. She bought the house 4 years ago as a foreclosure. One of the realtor who represented her told her she didn't need to do a home inspection because everything looked good. Right? That's so far outside your scope. You can't give that advice, right? So this lady was all by herself and had no representation. She was hugging us yesterday, thanking us so much that we were so awesome. And it was the best realtor experience she'd ever had. Now, she has 5 very good friends that are all realtors. Right. So in my mind, she did not want to work with one of those because she didn't want to hurt their feelings, for one. But also, I think it wasn't about their feelings. Not one of those 5 people were a 9. That's the bottom line, right? Not one of them was a 9. Because if it comes down to you representing yourself and risking $200,000 in equity and not knowing what the heck you're doing, none of her friends were a 9. And so I challenge you guys to think, is what you're doing a 9, right, or better? Okay. So bottom line, sellers want to work with agents who get superior results. And so here's another example of a postcard. Why list with Susie Realtor? Because the results speak for themselves. So we have our statistics there, what Susie's list price to sales price is. Her listings sell over the average agent, and then the average days on market. Average days on market, I think, are pretty skewed in MLS right now. And I do think that's an important statistic. And you guys, the market will shift. What we're experiencing right now is what goes up is going to come down, not meaning that we're going to have a crash, but it will shift, right? When I first started selling real estate, it was legitimately 60 plus days before you got your first offer. And that seems like a long time. And at the time, it wasn't, because it was just the average, right? So great example of what to say to show that you look different and that you're different, right? We want the seller to see that you're different, that you're a 9. The 7-step strategy for pricing, that is a class. We'll have that coming up. So once you take that class, it is a trademark thing that you can actually use in your marketing to say that, hey, I use a 7-step strategy, TM, to ensure that my properties that I list get sold. So that class will be on I don't remember when it's coming up, but you guys can find it on the calendar. Okay. All right, so we're not going to role play. And I'm going to go through these kind of quickly, but if you guys on page 9, here's a script, right? The script is the same, whether it's a door knock or a phone call. My caveat on making phone calls is make sure that you follow the do not call laws, right? Make sure you're paying attention to that. You don't want to get sued. It's a very expensive fine. That's where if you door knock, you don't have to worry about that. So the call's the same, and then you guys can find that script on page 9. All right, same thing. All right, so neighborhood website. So let's talk about this for a little bit. So neighborhood website. So you guys know I'm Bouge. that our wonderful Alex can help you build out a custom page on your Bruges site. So if you're going to start a farm area and you want to have a page on your website that talks specifically about that subdivision, Alex can help you with that. There's a lot being said around video about content around those neighborhoods. So something to think about too is, if you're going to do this and be serious, maybe hire someone to help you do some drone, capture some of those really sweet spots in the neighborhood and put together a little 30-second to maybe a couple minute long spot about that subdivision. The other thing too, that's not the materials that I heard at CRS, was going in and doing what's good, right? So what's good in Glendale, or what's good in Anthem, what's good in, Deer Valley, and doing little videos highlighting businesses. So whether that's a sandwich shop or a salon or whatever, right? And that's content that you can drive to your website, drive to your YouTube channel, drive to your social media. The businesses love it because they're starving for content as well, right? So, we all go out to eat. So why not interview the person, right? Why not talk to them about their business and what they're offering? So on neighborhood websites, you could do as simple too as having a Facebook page, right? You could just create a Facebook page that's around that neighborhood. So having information about real estate, neighborhood stuff, tax stuff. I think it's not on here, but back to school days, spring break, fall break. I don't know about you, but every year my stepson would come home and it was Friday and be like, oh yeah, I'm on spring break next week. What? So he never would let us know in advance, right? And so letting people know that, things that are going on that are specific to the community, okay? Recipes, neighborhood activities, if there's any kind of things, again, block parties, Halloween parties, any of that type of stuff that would be relevant to people living in the neighborhood. I used to manage a couple pages like that on Facebook, and not that this was cool because you hated seeing it, but a dog would get out, right? And they would message the Facebook page, hey, can you tell people that this dog got out? Those were my favorite posts in the sense of the engagement. Not that the dog got out, that was not my favorite part. And every time the dog was always found, fortunately, but the engagement and the share is what I loved about that, because it would take off like wildfire because everybody wants their dog to be found, right? And so again, don't want the dog to be missing, but those are, that your Facebook page is working when you get that type of activity. All right, so moving on here, financial security of an effective marketer. And so we look at, again, the listings. I think the numbers are a little bit skewed right now because I don't know how many of us actually have 20 listings. I wish, right? But let's say in a normal world that you did have 20 listings, you get 10 calls per listing. That would be an additional 200 talks, right? If we had a set rate of 15%, meaning that I was able to get 15% of those people to set an appointment with me, 50% show up, that's an additional 15 meetings at a 45% conversion rate, which is pretty conservative. I think most of us are going to be a little higher than that. And that would give you an additional 7 closings. So you guys can do the math on $10,000, right? As an average commission, it's a pretty good day. And so just by including, having a farm area. And again, this doesn't really talk about all the additional opportunities that come from having a listing. Okay, so the node you have of your marketing plan. So we gotta have signs, right? Signs in the yard. I don't like the term label the caller. I don't like the word label, but identify where the caller is in the process, right? So you guys are gonna get a greeting dialogue, a labeling dialogue, and then your justification dialogue, and then of course some tracking sheets as well. So we want to know exactly with the labeling the caller, we want to know where are they at in the process, right? What are they doing to be able to find a home? But before we jump into that, we talk about some core beliefs. Of course, it's a momentum class, right? So we got to talk about some core beliefs. So because we don't have a ton of time, well, we got a few minutes. I want you guys to read through these and then let's come off mute and just have a quick little dialogue about what we think of these core values. Some of you have seen these core values before, and they always kind of change, right? Because when you first take these classes, everyone always says the first one, there's no growth without discomfort, right? But then as you go through you get a little bit of experience, get a few deals under your belt, right? And then they all kind of change. Personally, number 2 is something that has a core value of mine that just is all parts of my life, right? Is living in a world of abundance. So any thoughts on these, you guys? Come off mute and have a share. What do you think, Roberta?
I always have lots of thoughts. I always disagree with number one, because I just don't believe that discomfort needs to be part of our life. You can grow without it. That's just my opinion. Other people function differently. I agree with you on number two. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but definitely number two. With the way the market is right now and the way our world is right now, I think number three is kind of a focus that I have.
Sure.
That's all this noise is not going to, I don't mean to diminish the severity, but all that noise is not going to determine my income. And after coming out of R4, the success stems from duplicatable processes and systems is important to me. And the leverage is the key to abundance. Every podcast I listened to, and at R4 several times, everybody was talking about how the greatest part of our business in the next couple of years is going to be based on referrals, referral fee. Everything will be connected to a referral fee. Mm-hmm. And those are all the items that pop out to me, which are a little bit different than usual that awesome. I talk about when I see this list.
Yeah, and I think number three is critical right now, right? Because there is a lot of noise, and there's a lot of people talking about the housing shortage and the crisis of that. And, I know it sounds a little bit cheeky, but, the speakers say, well, there isn't really an inventory, because if you look, we have sold more houses, right? We've sold 6 million homes last year, and that was up from the previous year. And so when you look at our own market, I pulled the numbers, but I don't remember what they were here for Phoenix, but there was indeed more homes that sold. And so the challenge is that things aren't staying long enough on the market to have a pool. And so, the cheeky thing is there is inventory. It's only a problem if you don't have it. Right. So anybody else have, because we got a couple others here, and I want to be mindful of time, but anybody else got any that stand out to you want to share? No. All right. Let's look at the next set. So real estate sales beliefs. So real estate can be a get rich business, right? And a lot of people go, oh, or the second one, real estate is basic. Real estate's not basic, right? The contract is complicated. We're practicing law without a law degree, but the concept of sales is basic in the sense that it is about trust. Do I like you? Do I know you? Do I trust you? Right? Can you get the job done? And so that part is basic in the fact that all we're doing is building relationships, right? And the relationship, the byproduct of the relationship is I help them with their primal need of shelter, right? I love the number 4, I will not convert 100% of leads I do not generate, right? We shouldn't get out of bed in the morning and wonder who needs our services, okay? People will trust and follow what I can logically and tangibly explain. Real estate is also emotional, right? And I would even say investors can get emotional and non-logical when it comes to buying a home. Roberta's shaking her head because she's experienced that, right? Because we would think investors are, they're just, they don't have any emotion. They do, right? So we need to be the voice of reason, okay? And then it's unacceptable to leave the client's money on the table. I think that's important because we do, as salespeople, get that stigma that we're all about just getting paid quickly, right? And so when we can come in with an attitude that, hey, I'm here to get you exactly what you deserve to get out of your home, what the market will bear, and it's not about the commission, right? It's about me helping you get to your goal, right? And then the buyer beliefs. Time reveals all, right? So this is where having a system will establish whether or not they're an A buyer. And A buyers are the ones that deserve your immediate time and attention. That's not to say that a B buyer or a C buyer, I'm not going to show a home or two to be able to solidify the relationship. But I want to make sure I'm spending the appropriate time. If someone's a C, I don't want to be running around showing them a bunch of houses, okay? Motivated, qualified, loyal people buy homes, right? Having a process reduces the risk. And so again, McDonaldizing things. Buyer consultations, you guys, are freaking huge. They've always been huge, and they're even more important now because, again, with that push on the commission, and as soon as our MLS starts showing what your co-broke is, I think you're going to start seeing a lot more people wanting to dip into your pockets, right? They're either going to think, oh my gosh, you were so worth every penny of that, or they're going to look at that and say, I don't need you. I could do this, right? Why am I paying you this? And so I think buyer consultations, sitting down in front of someone for an hour, going through the buying process. People made fun of me because I didn't know who Josh Altman was at R4, but I don't watch those shows. They drive me crazy, right? Because it's not reality. But consumers watch them and they think that that's reality, right? But it's not. There's a lot of pitfalls that can happen in not having an agent, right? And so sit down with them for an hour, go through the contract, explain the process, I promise you at the end, they're going to be begging for your representation. Okay. And then of course, A, buyers deserve your immediate time and attention. These are core values that we talk a lot about in Momentum. They're chopped through all kinds of different classes. And it's important because at the end of the day, you know, when you've got your butt kicked from a day in real estate, you know, you got to have your core beliefs. You have to have your foundation of why am I doing this? What's my rally cry, right? To get me suited up for the next day, right? And so these are all core beliefs. I personally would take this page and like print it out and have it handy so that you're looking at it all the time, right? Laminate it and hang it in your shower so that you're looking at it every single day. Okay, so I'm not going to read through the scripts because there's some other things I want to get to and I only have 20 more minutes, but on page 14, there is a dialogue on how to qualify a sign call. Page 15 is providing the information. So your job is that you definitely do want to answer their questions, right? And so if you think about like cop shows, right? Back in the day, there was a show that you had to keep them on the line for 30 seconds in order to track their information, right? It's kind of the same thing when you're on the call with a lead. We want to keep them talking, right? You want to keep them on the line as long as possible because the longer you dialogue with them, the better chance you have at converting them, okay? And so make sure you answer their questions, give them what they want, but then we want to go into that, how are you going about finding your perfect home type attitude, okay? Page 15. Page 16, the buyers either they're ready or not ready to buy, okay? And again, every time we get an opportunity, book the appointment, get in front of them, right? Go show the property if you can, you know, try to close for the deal or, and you know what's around the market too, what's on the market around that listing. Because if your listing's under contract, but you've previewed and you know what's on the street that's for sale, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to try to convert that lead because you know that there's something else on the market that fits their needs, okay? Page 17 is the justification. So, you know, buyers are used to, well, can't you just email me? Right? Can't you just give me the information on email? So you may have to justify why you want to meet with them. And so making sure you have a script that helps you with that. All right, so let's see, let me get caught up here. All right, we are going to jump to get my pages caught up here. Page 22. So wealthy people possess goals, plans, and strategies. So your GPS, right? We wouldn't go decide to drive across the country without having a map. Most cars these days are equipped with the map, right? So that's your GPS, right? So having that. So we want to make sure that we have a GPS for your business. So we got to have the market. We're going to have some ads, right? So again, dialogues that are very similar to the dialogues we just talked about. And then again, tracking that stuff. We want to make sure we track it, which at the end of your materials, there are some basic tracking guides or tracking forms that you can use. Really basic. I would take this and probably put it into a Google Doc, a spreadsheet. So it's not just a piece of paper, but, you know, tracking that. And there might be more things that you want to track in there that are things that are specific to you that you want to track. The most important thing that most agents don't track is number one, the number of appointments they need to go on and the appointments they actually do go on. Right. We, you know, when I first started selling real estate, it was like, well, okay, how many houses do you need to sell in order to, you know, hit your goal, which is great, right? That's one matrix we want to know. But the challenge with that is that the market has peaks, right? We know that there's peaks in the market. Last July, the last 2 Julys have been a little bit abnormal for Phoenix because July is usually a sucky month because it's too hot and everyone's on vacation, right? But with COVID, that wasn't the case, right? And so every market has peaks. And so we need to know where's the peak in your market, because that's not the time you take vacation. That's the time that you suit up and you know you're going to be busy. So taking your average, you know, knowing, okay, I need to sell 4 houses a year or 4 houses a month, that doesn't always work, right? Because you might only sell 2 in January, but you might sell 8 in March, you know, or May, right? So tracking that stuff and knowing where your peaks are, right? And then also your own performance. I had a client that I coached that went on vacation in July and then didn't get back to work till like October. And then they wondered why they had a really crappy fourth quarter. Well, everything you do today affects your business 30 to 45 days from now. So you can take vacation, that's great. But just know that if you take vacation for too long, it's going to affect your business. And so, you know, making sure that you know what your numbers are, and then winnow that down, right? How many appointments do I need to go on in order to have those transactions, and then track that. All right. So again, here's some samples in here, you guys, of ads that you could run. You could put these on Facebook. You could put them if you wanted to print them in a paper, if anyone actually reads the newspaper anymore. Craigslist, which some of you know that's where we found our house for sale by owner. It was on Craigslist. Crazy, I know. But Craigslist, there are still people out there using it. I think Facebook Marketplace could be a place to do it. Just make sure that these ads do not incorporate the broker marketing rules. So make sure if you're going to run something like this, that you get approval and you make sure you've got all the current stuff in there. Personally, I probably wouldn't do $1,200 a month for rent. I'd probably bump that because $1,200 is pretty tough in this market. And again, average sales price, I'm probably not going to market something under 150 because that just doesn't really exist here. Okay. And fixer uppers, again, that's going to depend on who you want to work with, if you want to work with investors or not. Okay, so what gets measured gets done. And so here is your first tracker on page 24. So again, what gets measured gets done. If you've ever been on a diet, what's the one thing that they tell you to do? You got to track your calories, got to track your steps, got to track how much water you're drinking. Kind of the same thing here is, are we tracking what we're doing? So many of us run around and we say, I'm so busy, right? I'm busy. But what are we really busy doing? Are we tracking the things that we need to be doing? Can we delegate some of that stuff, right? So here we want to track the number of calls that you get, how many appointments you set, how many appointments you actually go on, did you get the listing, was there a buyer involved? Okay, so pretty basic stuff. And again, feel free to add whatever you want to add to this, if there's something additional that you want to track. So the financial security, again, this is of a just listed campaign. And then there's one for a just sold campaign. And so if we start layering in, remember the first one was 3, then we had 7, now we've got 3, and then the just sold has 3. So that number starts growing, right, of transactions that we can do inside the farm, right? Does that make sense, you guys, of how that's starting to create momentum, no pun intended, inside the farm and the additional business that you can get from that, okay? So consistency and patience are key in that to make that happen. So here's the next slide on the just sold. So again, 6 additional transactions from doing the just sold, just listed. And think about if you did the open house and you did the additional door knocks I talked about. I don't even have a slide for that to be able to qualify what that or quantify what those might look like as far as the additional opportunities that you have. Okay. And personally, I love nosy neighbors at listings because I could put the nosy neighbor in my database, right, and have conversation with them. And nosy neighbors know people, right? They know what's going on the street, right? And they might be able to hook you up with other opportunities. So again, just listed, just sold. So you guys, there's some dialogues in here. And of course, you've got to have the home, right? You got to have the postcards. You need to have your neighborhood list. And again, can't stress enough, you got to make sure that you are not soliciting people that don't want to be solicited. And just so you know too, RE/MAX is going to be rolling out some technology that is going to help with some very specific targeting around like a geo farm, but using the first IO type technology to help us with that type of stuff. So that technology is coming. So, and I heard, this isn't in the materials, but just side note about first, somebody told, who was it? I don't remember where it was at. Was it at R4 or CRS? I can't, it must have been R4. Anyway, too much education the last week, you guys, everything's blurring together. But they were using their first for their pop buys. So first IO for Jan, it's a service that we have it works off of your cell phone. First is scrubbing over 700 data points, right? So it's doing something that we humanly don't have the bandwidth to do. And it's spoon feeding you and saying right in your phone that, hey, this person's a 3-star, their activity on their online activities saying that they might be thinking about selling. So someone, I don't remember who it was, if it was one of you in here, I apologize, come off Zoom and tell me it was you, claim the idea, but they were using their first on the 3 stars to do pop buys. Instead of just calling, they're popping by and saying, hey, thinking about you, right? They're not telling them that their artificial intelligence is tracking them. They're just popping by, right? And so I love that idea of using first for that. Another thing too that they announced at R4 is that first and your Bouge, everything's going to all start communicating together, which is awesome. So some really cool technology things coming. So again, here's the script, same script there for door knocking. And this is on the phone call. So it's the exact same script. And the, oh, by the way, this is an important part. So when you talk to people, the, oh, by the way, is the power phrase, right? So the, oh, by the way, I sold or I listed the Smith's house for X dollars. Hopefully they say, really? I didn't know houses brought that much in this area. And so I think in this market, that's the dialogue people would have, is they'd be surprised. There are people that live under a rock, right? They don't know what's going on with their houses. I also heard at R4, a great phrase from Jared James is not calling it a CMA. Would you like an updated estimate of the value of your portfolio? That sounds so much better than saying, hey, you want a CMA on your house, right? Because what does CMA even mean? We know what it means, but do they know what it means, right? I think Zillow's trumped us with the CMA with Zestimate. And so I think portfolio sounds really nice, right? And I wouldn't just say, hey, do you want it? Send it to them. Here, it's been a year since you've been in your house. I thought you might be curious to know what the update on your portfolio is. And then, oh, by the way, if you would like to leverage that and maybe talk about some investment, I'd love to talk to you about that, right? Helping them with that long-term wealth growth, right? And so, then there might be some people who just want to cash in because they're just blown away at how much money they've made in their house, right? And so I think that's a great tool to open the door to have conversations. So last two pages are, again, just additional tracking for you guys to do. And then this one, yeah, so this goes a little bit deeper. So your farm area, so it has the farm area, how many attempts, right? Attempts or conversations, right? I attempted to reach out to you and have a meaningful conversation about real estate. How many did I actually talk to, right? How many presentations did I set? How many did I give? And then did it result in a transaction? And you can see that all the way down for just listed, just sold, sign calls, any ad calls, and your website. And so tracking all of that, I know it's not necessarily fun, but it's important that we do it, right? Because otherwise, how do we know what our return on investment is? Because we don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? So we want to make sure that we're tracking all of that at a high level. So that is the materials for Jan and Lisa. I will email those to you. Any questions, comments? I see there's a bunch of things in the chat. I don't know if Alex was answering you guys. So Chris said, luck with Nextdoor website. Thank you for putting Barry's information in there.
I have a question, Sarah.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to take, I know I've taken this at the start of when I signed on with Remax, but I wanted to take it because I don't want to do EDDM. I want to be much more specific on the neighborhood that I want to farm.
Okay.
So what's the other option outside of that? If you don't do EDDM, what does that look like tactically?
That would be a Barry question. So, I mean, there's other companies. You could do CoreFact. You could upload. So what I would do is get with your title company and have them make the list for you, because they can create a spreadsheet for you, like an Excel or a CVS file. You can, if you go to a company like CoreFact, you could upload that file, and then CoreFact has really nice postcards that you could then send out that way. Barry can do the same thing, Christy. You could give him a list. And he can actually print right on there. So when Nate sends out his newsletter, Barry does, I forget the name of the technology, Barry gets Nate's list. And when the newsletter is 11 by 17 folded a couple times, and then the mailing thing gets printed right on the newsletter when he prints the newsletter. So that's an option for you if you have a very specific list that you want to go to.
I think that's where I don't know where to connect the dots is, what list would I give the title company?
So do you have a neighborhood specifically you're thinking of?
I'd have to draw it on a map kind of thing. Is that what you're saying?
That, or go in the tax record and pull the name of the subdivision. Or you just think, is you're an Anthem, or you're just thinking of a certain section of Anthem?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, you can do it by map too, I believe. You could go into tax record. Who do you use for your title?
First American.
They probably can help you. So I would get with their marketing person. They probably could help you with that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, they can pull all kinds of fun lists and things. So
Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, my internet was super awful today. It kept cutting out and I kept losing everything. So where will this
Oh no, you just sounded like a robot, Lisa.
Okay.
No, say it again. Now you're good.
Okay, so now it's my internet's really spotty today. So where will this be posted so I can watch it again?
Alex, you want to chime in on that? Where are we going to put it? Are we going to put it in the inner circle, or?
It'll be up on the inner circle, and we will also have it available on our YouTube.
So inner circle and the company YouTube channel.
Okay, and then real quick, just for Christy, because I've done both EDDM and just a neighborhood. Yeah, you just get with your title company and tell them what section of the neighborhood you want, and they'll pull that for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
There you go. Okay, any other questions or comments? We have the monthly meeting is Thursday. That's Alex, that's going to be streaming on Zoom too, correct? And in person I know it's in person, but we're streaming it too, right?
Yes, correct. It will begin at 8:45 on Thursday via Zoom if you can't make it.
Okay, we have someone coming in to speak about water quality and the amount of water in Arizona. So I think that's a pretty relevant topic right now, especially with all the growth that's happening and a lot of things happening. So I would highly encourage you guys to attend that. If you can't be there in person, definitely join in on Zoom, because that's going to be a good one to be at. So, and we got a lot of cool stuff coming up this month too. Alex is having somebody from Remax headquarters come in and talk to us about FIRST and how to navigate that and use it to our advantage. They shared some pretty amazing statistics at R4 about the power of the FIRST technology. So, so we got a fun month full of good classes. So definitely check out the calendar and join us. So if that's all we have, then I'm going to let you guys go and have a great day. And you're very welcome, Chris. It's always my pleasure. You guys, if you need anything, I'm here for you. So just reach out and shoot me an email, text, phone call, whatever. I'm here for you. Okay.
Thank you, Sarah.
It's my pleasure. You guys have a great day. Okay. All right. Bye.